The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone present to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the absence of clergy, let us bow our heads in a moment of silent reflection or prayer. Reading of the journal.
In Senate, Monday, April 27, 2026, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The journal of Friday, April 24, 2026, was read and approved. On motion, the Senate adjourned.
Without objection, the journal stands approved as read. Presentation of petitions. Messages from the Assembly. The Secretary will read.
Senator Kruger moves to discharge from the Committee on Codes Assembly Bill number 2239 and substituted for the identical Senate Bill 2273, third reading calendar 797.
So ordered. Messages from the Governor. Reports of standing committees. Reports of select committees. Communications reports from state offices. Motions and resolutions. Senator Gineris.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good afternoon.
On behalf of Senator Sanders, I wish to call up Senate Print 3180, recalled from the Assembly, which is now at the desk.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 490, Senate Print 3180 by Senator Sanders, enactment of the elder law.
Move to reconsider the vote by which the bill was passed.
The Secretary will call the roll on reconsideration.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Cousins-Zellner, ayes 52.
The bill is restored to its place in the third reading calendar.
Now for the following amendments.
The amendments are received.
Amendments are also offered to the following third reading calendar bills by Senator Rivera, calendar 590, by Senator Brisport, calendar 727.
The amendments are received in those bills and they will retain their place in the third reading calendar. Senator
I
Gineris.
now move to adopt the resolution calendar with the exception of resolutions 1845, 1847, 1934, 1961, and 1981.
All those in favor of adopting the resolution calendar with the exception of resolutions 1845, 1847, 1934, 1961, and 1981, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The resolution calendar is adopted. Senator
Please
Gineris.
call on Senator Mayer for an introduction.
Senator Mayer for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to proudly introduce a terrific group of students from my district who came to Albany as part of the Voices Unfiltered policy program at the YWCA of White Plains and Central Westchester. These students, if you saw their work, if you came between the LOB and where security is, you would see they shared their research, their very substantive policy proposals, and their advocacy campaigns with legislators and staff. Hopefully you have had the opportunity to see their work today, but their projects tackle critical issues, including the number of unhoused students, housing affordability, and support for our immigrant neighbors. I continue to be impressed by their creativity, their thoughtfulness, and their deep commitment to addressing the challenges facing all of our communities. Programs like this are so important because they empower young people to engage directly in the policymaking process and make their voices and opinions heard. New York's youth bring powerful voices and unique perspectives, and we honor them today. Adam Munoz, Aiden Munoz, Austin Munoz, Benjamin Elkin, Ina Borgia, Morgan Bowman, Oliver Chow, Kaylee Coffey, Juliet Anderson-Rosen, Maribel Cedeno, and Svara God, along with their chaperone, Leslie Mazzotta, are here today in the gallery, and I would ask that you extend them all the privileges of the House, welcome them to Albany, and thank them for their work, being civic participants at this young age. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Mayer. To these incredible young people making their mark on the world at an early age, we welcome you to our state capitol. We extend to you all of the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized and keep on doing what you're doing. Senator Gineris.
Mr. President, let's take up Resolution 1847 by Senator Clear. Read that resolution's title and call on Senator Clear.
Secretary will read.
Resolution 1847 by Senator Clear commemorating the 66th anniversary of Senegalese independence on April 4th, 2026.
Senator Clear on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to say, Yexcellent Jam, Chi Albany. That means welcome to Albany. Today represents a very first of its kind occurrence, Senegalese Day in Albany, paying tribute to our beloved Senegalese community and in Senate District 30 and statewide. It is a day to honor our great friends on the floor and in the gallery. Today marks the first annual Senegalese Day in Albany, celebrating the 66th anniversary of Senegalese independence. Senegalese independence is very unique and notable because it was achieved through negotiation and not bloodshed in 1960. New York is famously known as the melting pot of all cultures, and it is important that we recognize and honor them. In the mid-1980s and late 1970s, individuals and families from many West African countries migrated to the United States, settling in my district, including the great people of Senegal, known as the land of Teranga, meaning welcome. Located in central Harlem on West 116th Street is a vibrant neighborhood founded on family, tradition, and cultural preservation, made up of residents and business owners who originated from Senegal, West Africa. This area quickly became a main shopping and a social local hub for residents of their community. Today, the Senegalese bring the same spirit of welcome from their homeland to our communities and our beloved hair braiders, restaurateurs, beauty supply shop owners, fabric merchants, car service business owners. So many of their businesses are women-led and women-owned. For example, at the Malcolm Shabazz Marketplace is packed with a large variety of vendors selling goods ranging from traditional African goods and hair braiding boutiques. Truth to be told, when our friends from Senegal moved in, the neighborhood was in a vulnerable position. Buildings were abandoned, drugs were epidemic, and city disinvestment was rampant. Following in the spirit of the proverb, spilled water is better than a broken jar, the Senegalese made the community their own. They provided car service uptown in an era when taxis did not travel north of Central Park. They endured many struggles, but stayed and worked hard to build our beautiful community. They brought with them their faith, both Muslim and Christian, and worked to better our neighborhoods today through groups like the Senegalese Islamic orders such as Mika, the Murid Islamic Community in America, the Harlem Islamic Cultural Center, which is a spiritual home to many of the Tijani order, the Layin. In addition to the day-to-day enrichment they bring, twice in this decade they had the opportunity to celebrate in the streets when the Senegalese national soccer team won the African Cup of Nations tournament in both 2022 and yes, again in 2026. For over 40 years, the Senegalese have offered a taste of home for immigrants adjusting to their new life in the States, bringing in new shops, restaurants, bakeries, and have greatly contributed to the cultural and economic structure of New York. Commemorating the past, present, and future of the Senegalese community will continue to strengthen the fabric of New York's cultural identity. Today, we are joined by His Excellency, Mr. Demba Camara, Consul General of Senegal, and Mr. Mamadou Lamine Bow, President of the Senegalese Association in America, as well as friends, leaders, colleagues, and staff from these organizations. Also joining us is Ms. Astutu Andao, leader of the women's community, women's Senegalese community, Mr. Alaji Sow, Mr. Mamadou Dramé, former president of the Senegalese Association, and so many others are here with me today. I ask that we extend to them a great sense of Teranga from the chambers. Thank you.
To the Consul General, the President of the Senegalese Association, and to our guests from the mighty nation of Senegal, we celebrate your independence, and we welcome you to the Senate. I extend to you all of the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. The question is on the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
Mr. President, let's move on to Resolution 1981 by Senator Sanders. Read its title and call on Senator Sanders, please.
Secretary will read.
Resolution 1981 by Senator Sanders, memorializing Governor Kathy Hochul to proclaim April 28, 2026 as MWBE Advocacy Day in the state of New York.
Senator Sanders on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. A pillar of the American dream is the pillar of equality of opportunity. Equality of opportunity. Basically, that means that, as we understand it, a person who works hard, plays by the rules, and invests their time and treasure has the same opportunity to make it big in America, to get to the American dream. Sadly, this is really more dream than reality, not even in New York State. One example of this is that more than 54% of New York State is composed of women and people of color. Of the $160 billion or more budget that New York State has, the state share of MWBE has been $3 billion. Now, I'm not the world's greatest mathematician, but that does not sound like 54% or anywhere close to it. Yet this meager amount even troubles some. We have an ill wind coming out of D.C. that says that this is too much, that this is not fair, and somehow this threatens something. They never really say what. But we in the Empire State have taken a different position. We say that we are going to stand for all, that we're going to fight to make sure there's equality of opportunity, that everyone gets a fair chance at competing here. We in the Empire State are not going to let these ill winds, this foul-smelling wind, determine what we're going to do here. And I want to take a moment to praise the governor and to praise this body for standing firm on this. Now, MWBE Day is a day where we get to speak and agree that this is part of New York, that everybody here is part of the great culture that we call New York. And we have some of the greatest heroes of MWBE here today. We have, and I will only read a couple of names because if I go further, we will be here for quite a while. I would not do right if I didn't speak of Jason Clark and Dr. Tammy Pate and Carla Hernandez and Michael Gardner, and of course the New York Women's Chamber of Commerce and others. Mr. President, I would like for us to give these great guests and this great day the benefit of this great chamber and to reward them for their great efforts. I thank you, and I thank this great chamber for allowing this day to happen. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. To our guests, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. The question is on the resolution. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
Next up, Mr. President, is Resolution 1845 by Senator Bailey. Please read that resolution's title and call on Senator Clear first to speak on that resolution.
Secretary will read.
Resolution 1845 by Senator Bailey, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the birth of John Coltrane, renowned artistic trailblazer and innovative New York jazz musician.
Senator Clear on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. John Coltrane is a beloved figure whose singularly unique jazz virtuosity built upon Harlem Renaissance legends and influenced the entire world. Many of Coltrane's earliest performances were uptown at the Apollo Theater. One of Coltrane's final performances was at the christening of the African Cultural Center in Harlem, where he dedicated the song Tunji to Babatunde Olatunji. In between, he was simply beloved all over the world. His masterwork, A Love Supreme, was described as a musical prayer in 4 movements: acknowledgement, resolution, pursuance, and song. which combine to form Thanks to God for a Spiritual Awakening. For the past 5 years, in my district, we have extended and enriched the Coltrane legacy in Harlem with an annual tribute each September called the John Coltrane Jazz Appreciation Day Festival. Performers have included legends such as Dr. John Satchmo Manan, trombonist Craig Harris, Patience Higgins, Antonio Hart, Bill Saxon, Camille Thurman, and the Darrell Green Quartet. The John Coltrane Jazz Appreciation Day Festival is a treasured event that draws a capacity crowd of nearly 2,000 people, and we hope that this year, on the 100th birthday of John Coltrane in the heart of the Harlem Renaissance Cultural District, we will continue to pay proper tribute to the greatest of all time, John Coltrane. I want to thank Senator Jamal Bailey for bringing this important resolution today. This is more than just about art and entertainment. It is about preservation. And in a period in time where much of our culture is threatened with erasure, it is important that we pay tribute and lift up our great artists like John Coltrane. The music of Coltrane represents so much of not only the Black experience in America, but also the human experience of struggle and triumph. Mr. President, thank you, and I proudly vote aye.
Thank you, Senator Clear. Senator Gennardis on the resolution. Senator Gennardis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I love jazz, Mr. President. Before I got elected and I had free time in my life, I used to go to Senator Clear's district to Bill's Place, Friday nights, right? Go listen to some amazing jazz. But among my favorite was John Coltrane. And everyone talks about Love Supreme. To me, it's the live version recorded in 1965 in Paris, that 48 minutes, that spiritual journey, which is a joyous cacophony of sound and music and energy. And it all starts with that slow, haunting humming, and he just starts bringing it in, love supreme, love supreme. Nothing is better. Nothing is better. And whenever I'm feeling like I need some spiritual rejuvenation, I put that on, because that just fills me up. And it's because of the power that he has, the way he harnessed the power of music to heal people who may or may not know that they were broken or that they were hurting or that they needed some type of healing is unmatched by any musician I think that has ever lived on this planet. And so I'm really thankful that we get to take a moment from our deliberations today to pay tribute to Mr. John Coltrane on the 100th anniversary of his birth. And I want to thank Senator Bailey for reminding of us of just how important that is. I vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Webb on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to extend my appreciation to Senator Clear and Senator Bailey, and of course our majority leader, for supporting this important resolution. John Coltrane, as we've shared so far, and as a lot of us know, he was an incredible pioneer in his shaping of music. Not just jazz, but music overall is something that we most certainly still recognize, and it's important that this resolution is happening today as part of commemorating his 100th birthday. He has not only inspired generations of musicians to pursue their dreams, he is also noted as one of the most influential and prolific artists in the history of jazz and music. It is also important to note that his inspiration to artists pushed them to move past what is comfortable or what is safe and to reach for something that is true. John Coltrane also served his country. He enlisted in the Navy to fight in World War II, though it was obvious that his true calling was music. And while stationed in Hawaii, he played clarinet in the Navy band, the Melody Masters. Though due to segregation, he was only a guest performer and could not be considered a permanent member. He came of age at a time of pervasive racism and bigotry, yet he dedicated his life to spreading a love supreme and being the force which is truly for good. He collaborated with trailblazing artists like Miles Davis and Thelonious Monk, And we all know that music is one of those things that brings us all together regardless of cultural identity. I shared this story about my family. My parents in particular were vast collectors of albums. They were known in my neighborhood as our neighborhood music store. And most certainly amongst the many albums that they collected, John Coltrane's music was most certainly prominently featured in that collection. Next month, the Black Legislative Task Force is coordinating a celebration to commemorate Black Music History Month, and of course, we will be recognizing John Coltrane and other icons who have shaped and continue to shape our culture through music and more. John Coltrane's music continues that connection. His music lives on in concert halls, on sidewalks, and in jazz clubs around the world. His music lives on in each and every one of us when we pursue our true calling. And when we find our own song or theme music and refuse to let it go unplayed. I am proud to be voting in favor of this resolution, and I encourage my colleagues most certainly in honoring the extraordinary life and enduring legacy of Mr. John Coltrane. Thank you, Mr. President. I proudly vote aye.
Thank you, Senator Webb. Senator Martinez on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today because this wonderful house sits in my district. And while we're celebrating this milestone, as mentioned before, let's not forget the preservation for future individuals to listen to such great music. And A Love Supreme, the fact that it was created in Dix Hills on Long Island is one of the proudest moments that I can possibly say that I have right now, because when I found out that Senator Bailey was presenting the 100th, our district was so big and there's so much history in them. And even though jazz is all over the state and the city and Queens and in the Bronx and so forth, but he's on Long Island, right? So I just needed to stand up for that. And I just want to say to the family, thank you for uniting so many people through music, through culture, and please know that you will remain in our hearts forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Martinez. Senator Sanders on the resolution.
It is true that John Coltrane was an amazing spirit, a force of nature that he chose to harness itself through the question of jazz. It is true that Harlem certainly played a major role with him, and you pointed out you're part of Long Island, but it is also true that when John Coltrane went home, he went to Queens.
That's right.
His home was in Queens. His home was in St. Albans, as a matter of fact, that perhaps this is the soil that gave him the supreme love that we all are speaking of. Perhaps this is where he was able to bring it together, and I invite all of you to discover what John Coltrane discovered, that there's something godly about Queens, and that we all should go there. Jazz is noted by many different things. Improvisation is one of the most important things to jazz. In a good jazz concert, you never hear the music the same way twice. Unlike other musics, you never are hearing the music the same way twice. You're always going to hear it slightly different, or sometimes radically different, depending on your album, depending on what the feel of the day is. John Coltrane took jazz and took it to just a whole nother level that we frankly have yet to figure out where it is. People have branched off, many people have branched off from him and have gone in so many different ways. The Mahavishnu Orchestra quickly comes to mind, and others have just gone all over the place with jazz. So I invite everyone to find two different things. First, of course, to find yourself in jazz. John Coltrane is a great way to start, but jazz is so wide, it has room for everyone. And another place that has room for everyone is, of course, Queens. So find yourself in Queens also, because you'll fit in well with John Coltrane. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you,
vote yes.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Senator Bailey, to share his love supreme and to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank leaders to her cousin, Senator Martinez, for being so gracious, Senator Clear for sharing her views from Harlem, and Senator Gennardis and Senator Webb and Senator Sanders. We talked about the soil that was rooted, but we're going to talk about the soil that John Coltrane came from. He was born in Hamlet, North Carolina. Raised in High Point, which is my state. This one's for North Carolina. Come on and raise up. And North Carolina raised up one of the true legends in music, not just jazz music, Mr. President, in music. In 40 years, this man has created an art form that Senator Sanders indicated has never been replicated. The precision or imprecision in which he's able to play. I'll get to hip-hop in a second because there is a fusion there, but Rakim noted he borrowed his delivery when he heard John Coltrane play two notes at the same time. So he pushed the boundaries of music, not just jazz music. And he did a lot of great things. He said, you know what, sound in music, but I'm gonna make it soulful with his reinterpolation of my favorite things. Giant Steps, one of my favorite songs, the frenetic energy. And I'd imagine you never hear that song played twice. Just the frenetic energy, not so mellow, but mellow at the same time. Mr. PC, Love Supreme, of course. But Mr. President, my favorite Coltrane song was Alabama. Relatively short in comparison to the rest of his magnum opuses, but it plays like the soundtrack to Black America because it in fact was part of the soundtrack to Black America. It was inspired by the 16th Street Baptist church bombing. And he actually, without words, Mr. President, took the same rhythm of Dr. King's eulogy and played the sax in that form. That's not genius, that's beyond genius, Mr. President. You know, I learned a lot about jazz music from my dad. And in preparing for this resolution, I listened to a lot of Coltrane over again. And you know, growing up, you don't know the names of the songs, but you know you've heard them quite a few times. So I had to make sure I give due notes to my dad. And I was speaking to him about it. He talked about how growing up in Carolina, that was the first tenor man that he saw that inspired him. And he listened to Blue Train, which was his favorite song, to what my dad says, the seminal song of jazz music, Blue Train. WBGO and Jazzmobile and all of the places that we've heard jazz growing up, so important to our culture. Hip-hop and jazz, Mr. President, in my opinion, are the greatest American art forms. You could argue me if you wish. I don't think you'd be successful. Amen was sampled by Lords of the Underground's Chief Rocker. Functional with Thelonious Monk was sampled in Method Man. As I mentioned, Rakim, one of the greatest MCs of all time, was a saxophone player in his youth, and he patterned his rhyme, his flow, one of the most legendary flows in hip-hop history, after the way that Coltrane played the saxophone. Mr. President, there's so much that we can learn. As Senator Gennardis said earlier, if you have not listened to Coltrane, I would implore you, I'd wonder what you're doing. But secondly, I'd implore you to listen. You can go on whatever streaming service of your choice. I'm not going to advertise for them, but I want you to go on there and pick any Coltrane song, and you will be satisfied. I just want to make sure we recognize the guests that we have who continue to help bring jazz music at a major level. Mr. Charles Wadlington from Universal Records, and Ken Drucker from the Senior Vice President of Jazz Development at the Verve label group, the preeminent jazz label of our time. And recognize that even though that his family was supposed to be here, I want to recognize them for all that they do to continue the legacy. Ravi Coltrane, Michelle Coltrane, and Orrin Coltrane, his children, his late wife Alice Coltrane, and his late son John Jr. And I want to leave us with a quote from John Coltrane in 1966. He said, "I know that there are bad forces, forces that bring suffering to others and misery to the world. I want to be the opposite force. I want to be the force which is truly for good." He was truly for good, Mr. President. May his legacy live on, and on his 100th birthday, we celebrate one of the greatest to ever pick up a sax, Mr. John Coltrane. I vote aye on the resolution, Mr. President. And please recognize our guests.
Thank you, Senator Bailey. To our guests, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. The question is on the resolution. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
Please call on Senator Harkam for an introduction.
Senator Harkam for an introduction.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You know, it is said that we can't know where we're going unless we know where we've been. And so we need to understand the stories of our past to inform the vision of our future. And so I'm proud today that we have folks from my district today from the Sing Sing Prison Museum, telling fascinating stories from the folks who in the 200-year history of that correctional facility, the folks who serve there, the folks who work there, the folks who built the facility, and the complex interaction with the community of Ossining and the surrounding community and the proximity to New York City. I want to thank them for their really stimulating, important conversations about our corrections system as it stands today, where we need to go, conversations around reform, and just being a catalyst for these important conversations that we as a society need to have. In the wake of the 200th anniversary, they've opened the visiting center later this year in the village of Ossining, and continue the difficult work of trying to preserve the original cell block. Imagine trying to create an active museum within an active correctional facility. And the challenges and the roadblocks they continue to meet, but yet they remain undaunted while they try to continue to tell these important stories. So, Mr. Chair, from the Sing Sing Prison Museum, we have Minerva Coffey, Amy Huffnagel, and from the board, retired Sing Sing Correctional Officer, Lieutenant, John Gilman. If you would please, sir, welcome them to the chamber and extend to them the courtesies and privileges of the House.
Thank you, Senator Harkin. To our guests from the Sing Sing Museum, we thank you for coming up here and continuing to impart knowledge upon us. We welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you all the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. Senator Gianaris.
Now let's take up Resolution 1934 by Senator Serrano. Read its title and call on Senator Serrano, please.
Secretary will read.
Resolution 1934 by Senator Serrano, recognizing May 2nd, 2026 as I Love My Park Day in the state of New York.
Senator Serrano on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. For hearing me on this resolution, I would like to thank the Senate and my colleagues for adopting this important resolution today, recognizing Saturday, May 2nd, 2026 as I Love My Park Day in the state of New York. I Love My Park Day is a day where everyone can become a steward of their own parks and open spaces. There is always a tremendous amount of support and volunteers for this vital cleanup. We should treasure our parks and historic sites every day. New York has the best park system in the nation. New York's public lands and parks are vital resources that shape communities, support wildlife habitats, and benefit both physical and mental health. The safeguarding of these spaces is paramount as they provide opportunities for everyone to explore, play, wonder, unwind, learn, and find inspiration. My colleagues have heard me speak on both the economic and mental health benefits that access to open spaces offers, as well as the lifelong lessons that environmental stewardship, learning to swim, and exposure to natural world around us provide for the people of all walks of life. I would like to thank our Parks Friends groups, the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, DEC, and the Parks Advocates who continue to be fantastic stewards of our state parks and historic sites. Thank you, Mr. President, for hearing me on this resolution, and I thank my colleagues for supporting this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Serrano. The question is on the resolution. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution is adopted. Senator Gineris.
And now it's time for Resolution 1961 by Senator Martinez. Please read that resolution's title and call on Senator Martinez.
The Secretary will read.
Resolution 1961 by Senator Martinez, memorializing Governor Kathy Hochul to proclaim April 28, 2026 as Animal Advocacy Day in the state of New York.
Senator Martinez on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today on this fun day that we have here in our state capitol, and that's Animal Advocacy Day. I also wanted to thank Senator Hinchy, our chair of Ag and Markets, for continuing this tradition that has been happening here in the state capitol for 15 years. And it serves as a tradition to provide our state's animal ambassadors an opportunity to meet with one another and with their elected officials for policies to protect these creatures. This year, I'm proud to sponsor this resolution, joining a bipartisan legacy of respect and support for those who literally do not have a voice. Today, many of us had the opportunity to meet with the people, the organizations who are speaking on their behalf. They came asking that we act on bills pending before us here in Albany to protect the animals, both domesticated, wild, those on land, air, and sea, which complement our time here on Earth. Bills such as 197, Tucker's Law, would allow greater judicial discretion and order consecutive and concurrent sentences when an individual is convicted of multiple counts of aggravated cruelty. Bill number 252, which would prevent wild and exotic animals from being imported, sold, and owned. No animal should be removed from their native habitat for the purpose of profit. And for those who visited the well, I'm sure you saw an octopus around. Well, you didn't get one? Well, every elected should have received one of these. All right, talk to me. But this bill, what it would do, it would prohibit the exploitation and the environmentally damaging octopus farming. Now, it is not time for us to roll over on these important issues that we protect animals within our state from being abused, killed as a result of willful negligence and literally just deliberate viciousness against our animals. I thank the leader, my colleagues, all the advocates that were here today for really showing us that animals tend to be a part of our family sometimes. And in honor today, too, of the package that we're about to pass, we also must recognize that some of these animals are also family, and many of our women and men who are victims of domestic violence sometimes do not leave their environment because they do not have a place to go with their animal. So aside from being Animal Advocacy Day and supporting victims of domestic violence, I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this resolution, and thank you for the day.
Thank you, Senator Martinez. The question is on the resolution. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution is adopted. Senator Gineris.
Okay, let's take up previously adopted Resolution 1827 by Senator Webb. Read its title and call on Senator Webb, please.
Secretary will read.
Resolution 1827 by Senator Webb, memorializing Governor Kathy Hochul to proclaim March 2026 as Neuromyelitis Optica Spectrum Disorder Awareness Month in the state of New York.
Senator Webb on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to, of course, thank our Majority Leader for supporting this important resolution to proclaim March 2026 as Neuromyelitis Optica Spectrum Disorder Awareness Month in the state of New York. This condition, also known as NMOSD, is a very rare autoimmune disease of the central nervous system that attacks the optic nerve, spinal cord, and in some cases, the brainstem. NMOSD is often misdiagnosed, and every delay in diagnosis can carry significant and devastating consequences. A single relapse could mean permanent loss of vision, mobility, and independence. I think today of a young man named Nee, who's a constituent from my district, who is navigating right now this diagnosis with remarkable resilience. Imagine being a young person pursuing your education and building your future when suddenly your body begins to turn against you. Your vision changes, your strength fades, and your search for for answers is inconclusive. That is the reality for those living with NMOSD. Like so many others, Nee's journey has been filled with uncertainty, setbacks, and challenges that no person should have to face, but he continues to push forward, holding on to hope and showing strength in the face of a disease that can change lives in an instant. In 2022, there were about 22,000 individuals living with NMOSD in the United States. Studies show that up to 90% of those diagnosed are women, and that NMOSD is more prevalent among those of African or East Asian descent. We must continue to invest in research and make space in our healthcare system for rare diseases that often go unseen. We also have to ensure that patients have access to timely, accurate diagnoses, specialized care, and treatments that can prevent further harm. This resolution recognizes individuals like Nee and the families who walk in this path alongside their loved ones. Nee, we recognize your strength, and to all those who are impacted by this condition, your resilience and your courage, and we commit ourselves to ensuring that no one facing this disease or any other underrepresented health condition feels invisible, because rare should never mean forgotten. Thank you to Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins for her support. I am very proud to be voting in favor of this resolution, and I hope my colleagues will join me in voting aye and recognizing this month. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Webb. The resolution was adopted on March 31st. Senator Gianaris.
And lastly, but not least, previously adopted Resolution 1399 by Senator Prasad. Read that resolution's title and recognize Senator Prasad.
Secretary will read.
Resolution 1399 by Senator Prasad, memorializing Governor Kathy Hochul to proclaim April 29, 2026 as Denim Day in the state of New York.
Senator Prasad on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I rise to speak on Denim Day, as I usually do. As you know, we stand today in solidarity with survivors of sexual violence and reaffirm a simple but powerful truth. No one ever asked to be harmed, and no one should ever be blamed for experiencing this harm. April is considered Sexual Assault Awareness Month, but we should not have to speak about sexual assault awareness, because it's something that should never happen. Denim Day originated in response in 1998 because of an Italian court's decision. It overturned a rape conviction, and the reason for them overturning the rape conviction was because the person who was raped was wearing tight denim. And so the judges, in their infinite wisdom, implied that because the person was wearing these tight denims, that she had had to help the person who violated her. And they threw out that conviction. And the person walked free. The young woman was devastated, as anyone should be, because she was violated. So in response to that decision, women in the Italian parliament the next day, they all wore jeans in solidarity with the victim. Today, across the world, we wear jeans, and it will be tomorrow. So anyone who wants to wear jeans tomorrow, not in a chamber, but anyone who wants to wear jeans tomorrow, and take your picture to show solidarity with sexual assault victims. But on April 29th is the day we wear jeans to show that we will not tolerate sexual assault, sexual violence. It is unacceptable. Sexual violence is not an abstract issue. In our communities, survivors are our neighbors, they're our relatives, they're our friends, they're our co-workers, they're people that we see on a daily basis. And many of them are afraid to speak about the violation that's occurred to them. It also affects people from every background. Sexual assault, sexual violence does not discriminate. And so again, we ask that we stand in solidarity with sexual assault victims. But we have to take action. As a state, we have a responsibility to ensure that survivors have access to services, trauma-informed care, and meaningful pathways to justice. We must also continue to strengthen partnerships with our community-based organizations and invest in prevention, in our prevention efforts. And prevention starts early. Let's have those early conversations. Your voice matters. Please, if you hear of someone who has suffered a sexual assault, don't turn your back on that person. Have the courage to speak up on their behalf. To every survivor, we want them to know their voice matters. We respect them, we support them, and we will do everything in our power to ensure that it never happens to another person. On Denim Day again, I encourage you to do more than just wear your denim, but to speak up, speak up, speak out, be supportive. Again, I want to thank Leader Stuart Cousins and all of you in this chamber, all of you, my colleagues, who continue to support this resolution every year that we bring it to the floor. Because sexual assault, sexual violence should not be tolerated, and we should not hide from the realities of what's occurring. So again, I thank you all for your support, and I vote aye. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Prasad. Senator Webb on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Senator Prasad for continuing to lift up this important conversation around Denim Day. I'll just add that it is one of the longest running sexual violence prevention and education campaigns in history. It is most certainly a testament to how far we've come in the work that has already been done in this space, but it also underscores even more how much further we have to go with respect to preventing sexual assault. 81% of women report experiencing sexual harassment in their lifetime, and that statistic is painfully disturbing and unacceptable. Awareness campaigns like Denim Day allow every person to stand together in solidarity with victims of all genders. It creates the time and space for victims and advocates to feel supported, heard, and most importantly, recognized for their truth. No one should be blamed for their sexual assault because of what they were wearing. No article of clothing can ever bear responsibility for the violent actions of another person. Mr. President, I'll be voting in favor of this resolution, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Webb. The resolution was previously adopted on January 21st. Senator Gineris.
Well, Mr. President, the sponsors of today's resolutions would like to open them for co-sponsorship.
All of the resolutions are open for co-sponsorship. Should you choose not to be a co-sponsor, notify the desk. Please notify the desk. Senator Gineris.
I have a motion here by Senator Mayer on page 25. I offer the following amendments to Calendar 707, Senate Print 9517, and ask that said bill retain its place on the third reading calendar.
The amendments are received, and the bill will retain its place on the third reading calendar.
Please take up the calendar.
Secretary Reed.
Calendar number 199, Senate Print 54A by Senator Fernandez, enactment of the penal law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ortiz, Cousin Zelman.
Senator Fernandez to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Following off the last resolution, Denim Day, proudly wore my denim suit today. But the message is relevant to this bill. What you wear is not an invitation for assault or attack or rape. And what you choose to consume, should you get intoxicated, is not an invitation to assault, attack, or rape. I rise today in support of this legislation, and I thank my colleagues for advancing a bill that brings our laws closer to reality. Gaps in the law are leaving survivors without clear protection, allowing the focus to drift away from the actions of those who caused the harm and towards the circumstances surrounding the survivor. This bill addresses that gap, and by making clear that a person who is intoxicated to the point where they cannot remember is incapable of consent, regardless of how that condition occurred. It affirms a simple standard: consent cannot exist where capacity does not. I thank this body for passing this bill once again, and I look forward to seeing its full passage so that survivors of rape, when they are intoxicated, however way they got intoxicated, can get justice. Thank you.
Senator Fernandez to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 287, Senate Print 156A by Senator Salazar, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 386, Senate Print 871 by Senator Bailey, an act to amend the public housing law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 427, Senate Print 8628 by Senator Salazar, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 469, Senate Print 6750 by Senator Webb, an act to amend the retirement and social security law.
Read the last section.
Section 8, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 546, Senate Print 4584A by Senator Salazar, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 6, this act shall take effect on the 120th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 549, Senate Print 6814 by Senator Bailey, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 5, this act shall take effect on the 90th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 711, Senate Print 7612 by Senator Martinez, an act to amend the social services law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 120th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 712, Senate Print 8045 by Senator Bino, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 90th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 730, Senate Print 8870 by Senator Gianaris, an act to amend the labor law.
Bills laid aside and the perfect game is over.
Calendar number 737, Senate Print 9311 by Senator Prasad, an act directing the Department of Environmental Conservation to conduct a study
Read the last section.
on ecological restoration needs of Jamaica Bay. Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bills passed.
Calendar number 756, Senate Print 17 by Senator Scoofers, an act to amend the general municipal law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 777, Senate Print 5516A by Senator Hinchy, an act to amend the railroad law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 30th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 777, voted in the negative, Senator Walzer. Ayes 57, nays 1.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 789, Senate Print 441A by Senator Myrie, an act to amend the election law.
Lay it aside.
Calendar number 797, Assembly number 2239 by Assemblymember Braunstein, an act to amend the penal law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 1st of November.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, Zoner.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 797, voted in the negative, Senator Briscoe. Ayes 57, nays 1.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 806, Senate Print 3356A by Senator Rivera, an act to amend the public health law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, Zoner.
Announce the results.
In relation to counter 806, voted in the negative, are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Councilor Fitzpatrick, Chan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Montero, Murray, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rawson, Tedisco, Walzig, Weber, and White. Ayes 39, nays 19.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 816, Senate Print 8234A by Senator Jackson, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 820, Senate Print 2416 by Senator Parker, an act to amend the public service law.
Read the last section.
Section 6, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR, Kruger, Ort, Sukad, Zoner.
Announce the results.
Ayes 58.
The bill is passed. Senator Gianaris, that completes the reading of today's calendar.
Let's go to the controversial calendar, please.
Secretary will ring the bell. Secretary will read.
Calendar number 730, Senate Print 8877 by Senator Gianaris, enactment of the labor law.
Senator Borrello, why do you rise?
Mr. President, would the sponsor yield for a question, please?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yeah.
Sponsor yields.
Through you, Mr. President. So I read this bill with some curiosity. I'm trying to figure out what problem it's trying to solve. Could you just kind of explain to me what the genesis, what brought this bill about?
Sure. There's a phenomenon called ghost jobs, and if you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to do some research. It is one where a job is posted, but the posting company has no real intention of filling the jobs, and so people who are out of work, who are trying to plan their lives, who are seeking employment, will apply for these jobs when there is no real job that is pending to be filled. And the companies do this in order to gather data on applicants, in order to create the impression of growth of their company when they're not really trying to hire. There are various reasons why this is a thing that occurs, but it is definitely a phenomenon that is growing and that we would solve for by requiring some very simple disclosures.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield? Mm-hmm. Sponsor yields.
Well, that's pretty interesting. So we're going to really try to delve into the intent of someone that was actually intentionally trying to deceive someone. As someone who's hired a lot of people over the years, sometimes jobs don't get filled because the right person doesn't step forward, or you want to just make sure that you're always available to having a good person come forward. So how are we going to determine the bad actors from people that just simply want to make sure that they are engaging in every opportunity to hire a good person?
Well, the bill is very simple. It says if the job is for an immediate opening that is intended to be filled within 90 days, it should say so. This job is for, I think the disclosure says, this posting is for a current vacancy. The employer intends to fill this position by such and such a date. If there's a job that they know will be filled beyond the 90-day period, it would require a disclosure saying that. This posting is for a current vacancy. The employer intends to fill this position for a date after such and such. And if, in fact, it's just an open-ended job posting, which I think is the example you're referring to, they would require something to say this posting is not for a current vacancy, but the employer is seeking resumes to review in the future for when jobs do become available.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Well, but aren't you, by giving a certain fill-by date within 90 days, you're insinuating there has to be some kind of a guarantee. So you have to be guaranteed that you're going to actually fill a position that you're looking for. Sometimes you just don't find the right person, or at an affordable salary. How are we going to determine that this is a guarantee?
Guarantee required in this legislation. In fact, it specifically says the employer intends for the position to be filled in 90 days or less.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So who's going to determine the intent, whether or not it was, actually was genuine or not?
The Department of Labor would have enforcement powers if they believed that someone was violating this statute, then they could bring action.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
I was looking at the fines, and this is pretty excessive. A $2,500 fine, and then that will double. Even if it's remedied within 30 days, that fine still applies, and then it doubles to $5,000 after that. Doesn't seem excessive and harsh for a job posting?
I mean, no is the short answer, and Senator Borrello thinks a company can't in 30 days have a posting taken down. I don't really know what to tell them. It seems pretty reasonable that if you give someone a month's notice to take down a posting, they should be able to do it.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
But doesn't your bill say that even if they do take it down, they're still subject to a $2,500 fine? It's beyond 30 days, that would go to $5,000.
Yes, you were asking about the increase in fines as the months roll on. So yes, there would be an initial $2,500 fine for a violation. If the posts are taken down within a month of that notice, then that would be the end of it.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
One of my pet peeves with a lot of the bills here is they don't distinguish between full-time equivalents, FTEs, and people. This says 100 people or 100 employees. So I know you're trying to set a threshold that you have to be a business that employs 100 people or more, but there's a lot of companies out there, like myself, that are part-time, seasonal businesses. Does this contemplate FTEs or just the number of people?
Employees, which is the standard definition we use to delineate what's a small business versus a larger one.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So would this apply to just like a minimum wage job, a part-time minimum wage job, this would still apply. There's no threshold where you're going after a professional person that's making a six-figure salary. I mean, what's the determining factor here as to what would be considered a violation worthy of a punishment, like $2,500?
There's no salary threshold in the legislation. It would apply across the board. In fact, people that are applying for minimum wage jobs would perhaps be more in need of protection than people who would be seeking higher paying jobs.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Through you, Mr. President. So you're going to allow, you're basically going to task the Department of Labor. This could be a very, I think, labor-intensive, no pun intended, for the Department of Labor, because you're allowing really any aggrieved person to report this, and that an investigation has to be, commenced after that. I mean, so you see a job posting for a job that maybe you weren't even going to apply for, and now we're going to create an investigation for the Department of Labor. Is that what this bill would do?
I don't believe it would require investigation if the department's incapable of conducting one, but it authorizes them to conduct investigations.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
You're an attorney, I'm not, but doesn't this bill kind of create some legal ambiguity around what an employer intends to do?
No.
Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Why?
Sponsor yields.
Every law we pass requires an intentional, well, not every law, but predominantly the laws we pass require an intentional violation. I am a lawyer. That's called mens rea, right, in the legal jargon, because we don't want to punish people when they do things that they don't intend to do, right? And so that is so much of the statutes of our state and every state and the nation and the world require an intent to commit the crime. And so that is, or not crime, or violation in this case. That is just a part of jurisprudence. So I understand you're not a lawyer, but you've probably got some surrounding you that you can ask.
A few. Mr. President, sponsor continue to
Will the
yield?
sponsor yield?
No. Yes, I'm sorry.
The sponsor does indeed yield.
It's not that late.
We're almost there, bro. Not yet.
Through you, Mr. President. So I know you say we don't want to, someone did something intentionally that we don't want to punish them for it, but again, I'm not a legal expert here, but what is to stop, who is determining whether or not it was intentionally done or not? I just think that's an ambiguity in itself. You could have, someone that, whatever, the job posting company or the publication that they use left it up longer, or maybe they're using a company that hires people for them, a headhunter. Who's liable then if that was the case? The company or the company they hired?
Sorry to interrupt. That's a determination for the enforcing authority, whose decision could be challenged in court if an aggrieved party seems fit to do so. I would point out to Senator Borrello that the intent requirement is intended to protect someone who might be accused of violating the law. So if he wants to remove that to make it cleaner, he could put in a bill to amend this further, but I think the people you are trying to protect would be further hurt by that.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Okay. I think this is I guess this is my last question here. Has there been an outcry about ghost jobs? Or where have we heard this? This is the first time I'm hearing about this. I'm an employer. I'm a member of the NFIB, the New York State Restaurant Associations. I'd never even heard of ghost jobs before I saw this bill. So is there a real outcry? Are we really looking? Is this a problem that's really out there to be solved?
Yes.
That long question, I only get one word for a response. All right, Mr. President, on the bill.
Senator Borrello, on the bill.
This bill does what a lot of other bills that we pass in this chamber do, and that is create a private right of action. So I'm not so much concerned, quite frankly, about someone who's truly, I guess, duped, if you will, that they thought the job was open, they applied for the job and they never heard. But I am worried about, once again, creating an opportunity for someone to create a class action lawsuit and getting a lot of small companies in particular, because 100 FTEs wouldn't necessarily mean 100 full-time employees. It might mean 10 or 20 employees. It might mean somebody, quite frankly, that doesn't necessarily have a huge business but has a lot of labor, like a restaurant. I can speak from personal experience there. But what we're really doing here is we're in search of a solution for a problem that really doesn't exist, in my opinion. And at a very, very hefty fine, this is going to create what I would consider to be a bounty hunter situation, where we're going to have attorneys out there combing through all the job postings, whether it be on social media or in a newspaper or some kind of a job site, and then we're going to start creating lawsuits. And issues like that make it harder and harder and more expensive to do business here. This is why New York State is consistently at the bottom of every list when it comes to businesses, as a friendly place to do business. We rank 41st out of 50 states in the country for starting a new business, 41st for the great Empire State. We make it harder and harder for people to be able to just have a business, be profitable, employ people, and make a living for themselves and the people and the families that they support in their business. And this is just another step in that direction, unfortunately. I just don't see this as something that a problem that is worthy of such a hefty, severe fine, $2,500, $5,000 for posting a job for a little too long. That seems excessive to me. As a small business owner, I can tell you, and as a member of the NFIB who also has big problems with this, I can tell you, this is already a difficult place to do business. Let's not make it even more difficult with such a heavy burden like this bill. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Borrello. Senator Murray, why do you rise?
Would the sponsor yield for a couple of questions?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Just for clarification, I'm trying to get a hold of the time frames. So when it says that they must be clear about whether it's to be filled before 90 days or after 90 days, would that be solved easily by them simply saying immediate openings?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Senator.
So in the, I'm sorry, through you, Mr. President.
Senator Murray, please rephrase the question.
Sure. So in you're placing an ad, you have some openings, and you start your ad with immediate openings. Would that cover the time frame?
No, there's a very exact text that's in the legislation that they would have to use.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. I also just wanted to cover the fines, where it says a violation for each print publication or digital platform. Many times you'll have a print publication that also offers the digital platform as one. So when you purchase the ad, it'll go in the print also on the website or on the digital platform. Would that count, if there's a violation, would it count as one or two?
I was talking with staff. Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. Through you, Mr. President.
By all means, Senator Murray.
So many times when you place a help wanted ad, there is a print publication as well as a digital platform. And you get it as one. You purchase one ad, it goes on both. For the violation purposes, if you were to be found in violation and you had it on both, is that one violation or two?
That would be two.
That would be two separate. Thank you, Mr. President. On the bill?
Senator Murray on the bill.
Thank you, Senator Janaris. The problem is real. I was in this business. I owned an employment newspaper and website. The problem is real in that it is very, very frustrating. Some companies will place ads that either aren't real or for a ghost position. Sometimes they'll place ads to gather information, to gather data that later they sell. I'm not saying this is right to do this. I'm just wondering if the punishment may far exceed what's happening. The problem is, as I said, frustrating. That's about as far as it goes. It's not illegal. It's not putting anybody in jeopardy or anything. It's just frustrating. You see an ad, you send a resume in, you didn't hear anything back. 2 months go by, you still see the ad. Well, what happened? Why didn't they get back to me? So yes, it is frustrating. Is it worth punishing people who are employing people? I'll give you an example. You've got a company that gets a big contract. They're a manufacturer. They've got multiple positions that they're hiring for, and they put that ad in there that they have these multiple positions. Well, they may fill some of them. They may want to do it within 90 days. They just can't. Or maybe they're just going through the resumes very, very carefully, and they want to get more. I'll give you another example. Some publications, when it comes to employment, some are bi-weekly publications, some are monthly publications. If you place an ad in a monthly print publication, once that ad is placed, you can't magically pull it out. So if, in fact, it's found that the position was filled but the deadline passed, you're still running that ad for a full another month. You didn't do anything wrong. You just missed a deadline because it was a monthly publication. So 30 days really isn't very realistic. But I'll tell you what, $2,500 is very realistic to the pockets of people, of companies that are trying to employ New Yorkers. So I do think we should continue to look at the problem, at the situation, and I appreciate that that's what's being done, but I think the punishment here far outpaces the so-called problem here. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Murray. Senator Tedesco, why do you rise?
Yeah, with the Met fan, Senator Generis, right?
As a Met fan, Senator Generis, you
Both
yield?
of those things, yes.
My condolences.
Senator yields.
The definition of employer here, is it for part-time or full-time employment, or both?
Both.
And if I was
Senator
just a
Tedesco, are you asking, are you on the bill? You're asking the sponsor
Yeah, will
to
you yield again?
Will the sponsor yield? Sponsor yields.
And if I was just a citizen and I want somebody to mow my lawn and I put an advertisement in the paper or come to my farm and clean up the horses and do some things around the farm, not hiring them full-time, but maybe a one-time thing, would they have to stipulate anything about that?
Only if you're hiring more than 100 people,
100 people?
yes.
Yeah,
It's a pretty
And-
big operation at that point.
yeah. Would the
It's a
gentleman
big
yield
lawn,
again?
Senator Tedesco.
Will the sponsor yield?
You know, in the city, we don't have lawns that need 100 people to mow them, but maybe in Saratoga you do. Yes, I yield.
Sponsor yields.
So one of the things that upsets our constituents to a great extent that they think we treat ourselves differently than we treat them sometimes. Like they have deadlines, and when they have to get something done, they get it done on a deadline. We have budgets. When we've got to get it done in the last 5 years, we hadn't got it done. We're late now. I'm wondering, the state of New York and all our divisions and all of us in this room, when we put out advertisements to hire people, these stipulations would relate to us in the state of New York also, right? Although we're not a business, we shouldn't treat ourselves any differently than the employees we want to hire. So all the stipulations in this bill relate to, like the director of some organization here or a staffing need that we put out advertisements, and they'd have the same stipulations. And you or I, if we want to hire a staff person and we put an advertisement out there, we'd have the same stipulations as the businesses would. Does that bill cover that? Okay, thank you. This is another illustration.
Senator Tedesco, are you on the bill?
Yep.
Senator Tedesco on the bill.
Another illustration of how we treat others in our state, which has forced them to walk out of the state and vote with their feet. I mean, I can't express it enough. You know, you're going to treat businesses like this, but then you're going to treat the employees that we hire in the state and have the opportunity to put these advertisements in there. And you know what? I have my constituents call me, and they say they go for interviews. And the same thing you're talking about that businesses might do, they're ghosting and doing to some of my constituents in my district. So why would you treat yourselves differently or the state of New York differently when you hire people? You are employers. You're also elected officials. You're also representatives. You're telling businesses, you better not make any mistakes. You got a certain number of days to get this done. You better be truthful. But you're treating the constituents, all the state people who we hire here potentially, a little bit differently. We can ghost them. You can ghost them when you become their employer with the employees. But the business in the state, oh, they got to have specific guidelines and mandates. And these specific guidelines and mandates are the reason why people are voting with their feet. And remember what the situation is. You're projected to lose 2 or 3 in the next counting procedure, census. And every 2 minutes and 24 seconds, somebody leaves the state of New York because of this. You're an employer. Everybody who hires somebody in our state agencies are employers. You want to treat businesses like this, give them guidelines, give them more mandates, and they're going to pack up and walk out. And then the governor last year who says, I don't care if millionaires leave the state of New York. What do I care if they don't like? But then last week she was on her knees, please come back. We need your dollars. Why do they need the dollars in their money? Because of spending that takes place? Because of taxes in New York State? because of energy policies that are ridiculous, and she's pointed them out with a memo from her own office. And that's part of why we're here today with a late budget in the 5th year in a row. We couldn't do the number one thing that's probably most important by our Constitution, good, balanced, on-time budget to keep people in New York State and attract them to come here. And again, I'll tell you, it's not South Carolina or Florida or Texas. Things like this bill, what you're doing to businesses and jobs in New York State, it's Connecticut, it's Pennsylvania, it's New Jersey. They're leaving the state in groves. Stop this. Please, treat yourselves in the state of New York like you're treating your constituents, or do better for them like you're doing better for yourself. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Tedisco. Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. Secretary will ring the bell. Senator Gianaris.
We've agreed to restore this bill to the non-controversial calendar.
On consent, the bill is restored to the non-controversial calendar. Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Sukkot, Zellner.
Senator Gianaris to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. As an initial matter, I'm fascinated by how Senator Tedisco is hiring 100 lawnmowers when he hasn't gotten a paycheck in a month, but I could ask him that offline. And I appreciate that Senator Borrello doesn't have a great knowledge of the legal system in our state, but there is no private right of action in this bill. A private right of action is when an individual is empowered to bring suit, him or herself, against a violation. This would have to go through the Department of Labor, so there is not, in fact, a private right of action provided for in this bill. Also, I appreciate that his own colleagues contradicted him about whether this is a real problem or not. Senator Borrello pointed out that he didn't think this was something he's ever heard of. Senator Murray, who I appreciate his recognition of the problem being a real one that a lot of people who are frustrated deal with. And it may seem like it's just a frustration and nothing more, but if you're unemployed and looking for a job, I guarantee you that if you have to wait around for a job that doesn't exist, it's more than just a frustration. And let's talk about the burdens on businesses. Let's be serious. We're talking about a sentence in a job posting. It either says, the job's open right now, we hope to fill it within 3 months, the job's going to be open after 3 months and we'll fill it then, or we're not sure when the job is going to be open, but we're collecting resumes. That's all this bill says. One of those 3 things, when you post a job, just say that. I don't think it's a tremendous burden on a business that employs over 100 people to add 1 sentence to a job posting. I vote yes, Mr. President. Thank you.
Senator Gianaris to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Murray to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate what the sponsor's saying there, but it's more than just a sentence, because if you put that sentence in and don't fill it within that time frame, then it's a violation. That can cost you $2,500, $5,000 because you're trying to hire someone. I don't think we want to punish employers. So for that reason, I'm voting no.
Senator Murray to be recorded in the negative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 730, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kansas Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Matera, Murray, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rawson, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Also, Senator Martins. Ayes 39, nays 19.
The bill's passed.
Calendar number 789, Senate Print 441A by Senator Myrie, an act to amend the election law.
Senator Walzett, why do you rise?
Mr. President, I hope the sponsor would yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Through you, Mr. President. So the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act provides for assistance for language minority groups currently. That's under Section 17208 of election law. What does this bill change?
Through you, Mr. President, it adds 2 groups to the language minority and protected class language minority groups to the language assistance requirement. Those 2 groups are the Haitian Creole and Middle Eastern and North African, which has been recognized by the federal government as its own separate category worthy of recognition.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Through you, Mr. President. So adding Haitian Creole as well as Middle East and North African, as you were pointing out, has been newly defined. And currently in the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act, if there's greater than 2% of those groups or greater than 4,000 individuals in a political subdivision, they would qualify for the language assistance from Board of Elections. What languages in these new additions, obviously Haitian Creole as you've named it, what languages would Board of Elections have to be prepared to provide all of that material for if this bill becomes law?
Through you, Mr. President, in the instance of Middle Eastern North African, or MENA, as it is affectionately called, we have in this bill not specified all of the languages, as it is not on the federal level exhausted in the explanation of where those countries of origin or languages excuse me, may be. However, if you look at where the state of New York is on the top languages that are spoken, Arabic happens to be one of those top languages. And if we approximate the information already provided by OGS on its language diversity dashboard, I would just note that the state already provides language access in 50 state agencies for these top languages, of which Arabic is one. We would add some counties to this language assistance requirement.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
The sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So of the additional languages that we might be adding here, what's the trigger? Is it on the language proficiency and the actual language that people are speaking, or is it based on the census number, based on Statistical Policy Directive 15, which you point to in your bill, and that's the change that you articulated here on the floor that's adding the new check block in the census for Middle Eastern and North African? Will it be a language trigger within those nations that have been described by the federal government, or will it be the number of people that have checked that block within a census tract and then a political subdivision? What's the trigger?
Through you, Mr. President, this is not wholly tied to the census numbers. It refers to the census by way of the American Community Survey, as ACS defines language minorities and limited English proficient. That is the language that is used in the statute, and that would be how we would categorize.
And would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Through you, Mr. President, yeah, the question is still the same. So if in the American Community Survey that's scheduled to go out in 2027, if they've surveyed the political subdivisions of the state of New York and have found 2% or 4,000, which are the thresholds in the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, if they found those thresholds to exceed the 2% or the 4,000, does that mean they'll be providing for all of the languages of all of those countries that are of Middle Eastern and North African descent, or is there a particular language, or will it be language-based to find that 2% or that 4,000?
Through you, Mr. President, I think I understand the question now, and I think it is a determination that would have to be made by the Board of Elections. The requirement of providing materials, et cetera, that would make it easier for eligible voters to access the ballot, I think could be determined by the Board of Elections' own experience with limited English proficient voters and speakers. And I think we have some of that information by way of what the state already collects through its language access requirement for all of the other state agencies. So it could be the case that there would be more than one language under the MENA requirement should this become law, but that would be a determination made by the local board.
Briefly on the bill.
Senator Walczyk, on the bill.
So the countries that have been listed in Statistical Policy Directive 15, which the sponsor refers to here and has an impact on the bill that's before us, those countries are Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Morocco, Iran, Israel, Palestine, Iraq, Kurdish, which is not a nation, and others. But of those, many languages spoken: French, Arabic, Armenian, Kurdish, Aramaic, Coptic, Berber, Spanish, Farsi, Luri, Azuri, Balochi, Hebrew, Russian, Yiddish, Ladino. The list goes on. So I think if I would ask the sponsor to yield.
Will the sponsor again yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
I think for purposes, through you, Mr. President, for purposes of providing your intent to the Board of Elections, if we're going to allow the Board of Elections to determine whether it's the number of people that are from this region that the federal government is now going to count and account for and provide data for, would you provide some intent as to whether it's to meet the threshold for those languages within that region or whether it's that region at large?
Mr. President, in both cases, whether it is a language minority group or a language by way of limited English proficiency, both of those make reference to language and what is spoken. And it is our intent that if you are a limited English proficient speaker, if you speak another language but are eligible to vote and you hit certain thresholds, that you would have the materials provided by the Board of Elections to help you. So if that happens to be other languages that grow as the Haitian Creole speaker population has grown, as the Arabic speaking population has grown, and certainly as other language speakers will be growing in our electorate, it is our intent to provide as much access as they are eligible for.
And Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
So then, now that we have this new region, through you, Mr. President, so now that we have this new region that we'll be considering under the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act and providing those services, why not just, with such a plethora of languages, why not open it up to all languages of the globe with the same thresholds that you've proposed?
Through you, Mr. President, I welcome my good colleague from the other side of the aisle, should he be so moved, to open up language access for as many New York voters as possible to introduce legislation to that effect. This is not meant to be a limiting principle, but to recognize growing population and language speakers in this state. And it is not meant or intended to be an exhaustive or final list. It is a list that recognizes the current growing patterns in our state.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Yeah, it is inclusive for some, but not for all. And my question is why?
Through you, Mr. President, this bill addresses two growing language-speaking populations. I am happy to hear that you support a New York for all, and again, would welcome you to introduce legislation to that effect that would open up access to more languages more specifically. This is not a limiting bill. This would not prevent us from expanding this list, but if you look at the languages that are spoken in this state, the languages that we already are required to provide language access for outside of ballot access, these are two languages that are growing, and that's why we are trying to provide more access.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Why countries of origin and heritage rather than judging the English proficiency of a region?
Through you, Mr. President, we are matching what the federal definition of MENA is.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
And through you, Mr. President, only citizens have the right to vote in New York State. There is an English proficiency portion of a naturalization process. Does New York City already provide assistance for Haitian Creole and for Arabic?
Through you, Mr. President, yes.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Are there populations outside of New York City that you anticipate that this will impact?
Through you, Mr. President, there may be. It depends on what the demographic changes that may occur in the future. But if you reference the OGS Language Diversity Dashboard and look at both of these groups, whether it's Haitian Creole or Arabic, for instance, you would see that in Kings County, Queens County, Rockland County, and Nassau County, they potentially might have a Haitian Creole speaking population that would be triggered. For Arabic, the two or the three rather would be Kings, Queens, and potentially Erie County that might be included. But I don't want to say that with any finality. This would be up to the local boards of elections to determine.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
You continue to say Haitian Creole and Arabic, but earlier in debate, we talked about the threshold meaning any of the other languages in various nations that are included in this new way to account for people's heritage. Why not outline Arabic specifically if that's your intent?
Mr. President, I was using Arabic to be illustrative in response to your question. As I have stated previously, the definition here and referenced in the bill refers to the federal definition because for a long time, MENA was not its own category, and MENA was looped in with categorizing yourself as white for purposes of data collection. Because this was a recent change on the federal level, we thought it important for us to incorporate that for language access purposes in this bill.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
You mentioned some additional jurisdictions outside of New York City. Has a fiscal analysis been done for how much this would cost those municipalities to implement?
Through you, Mr. President, there has not been a fiscal analysis done. We believe that the responsibilities placed on the boards of elections would be able to be resourced, and as I have for the entirety of my career here in the Senate, continue to advocate for more money for our local boards of elections.
And Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Through you, Mr. President, so I think in your last response you've answered this next question, but can we anticipate that that will be on the local property taxpayers funding for their local board of elections to meet these new requirements?
Mr. President, we cannot anticipate that.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Through you, Mr. President, is there a separate pot of money that we can anticipate is available for Board of Elections to meet the new compliance here?
Through you, Mr. President, we continue to advocate for more resources for our local boards. I think this majority, and by way of budgets of years past, have increased the funding going to our local boards of elections. We make changes to the election law every single year, and some years more than others, and our boards of elections have done their best to keep up with those changes and to try to comport with the law, and we don't anticipate that this would be any different.
And Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So the federal government will implement the new Statistical Policy Directive 15 in their 2027 community survey, but this bill goes into effect a year after it becomes law. How can boards of elections comply with data that hasn't yet been created by the federal government?
Through you, Mr. President, the requirement from the federal government in the policy order SP 15 is a request for agencies to inform them on how they plan to comply. It is not it does not require them to wait a year until they implement, but simply to, by the year's end, inform them how they have either implemented or plan to implement. So I don't think that SP 15 serves as a barrier to our local boards of elections determining what languages may fulfill this bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the bill.
Senator Walczyk on the bill.
I appreciate your answers. To become a naturalized citizen, you do have to pass an English proficiency test. This bill picks some languages to assist non-proficient English citizens with assistance, but ignores others. Rather than providing select groups to help vote based on their first language, we should be making elections free and fair for everybody. We also shouldn't be burdening local government with additional unfunded mandates. We also shouldn't be constantly changing the rules of our elections to curry favor with singular groups, to elevate one political party over the other to a political end. I therefore will be voting no and encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Thank you, Senator Walczak. Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. Secretary will ring the bell. Senator Gianaris.
Mr. President, we have agreed to restore this bill to the non-controversial calendar.
On consent, it has been agreed that this bill will be restored to non-controversial calendar. Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect 1 year after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris, Kruger, Orts, Cousins, Zeldin.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 789, voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Kansaria Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Hellman, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, O'Mara, Ort, Rhodes, Walczak, and White. Ayes 43, nays 15.
The bill is passed. Senator Gianaris, that completes the reading of today's controversial calendar.
Is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at the
Move
desk.
to adjourn until tomorrow, Wednesday, April 29th at 11 a.m.
On motion, the Senate stands adjourned until Wednesday, April 29th at 11 a.m. Let's go, Knicks.